which I think are also not right or incorrect or incoherent or whatever. However, a lot of the stuff needed to be said, I must say. And so where
Shout out Mohammad Hijab, man.
I think what you've said agrees with Islam or agrees with the position, which I would say is more favorable to women anyway, from a psycho-spiritual perspective, is obviously the focus on traditional roles, obedience to the husband, which is a very, I mean, to say obedience to the husband in the 60s and 70s when the feminist movement was fresh would be blasphemous, sacrilegious. And for someone, okay, to come out and speak about that, as in yourself and other people, is definitely seen as a very audacious, no pun intended, obviously this place is called audacity, right?
Yeah.
Very audacious thing to do. And very, in our sense, very praiseworthy. You know, in our religion, for example, in Islam, and I would say in Judaism as well, and I would say traditional forms of Christianity, in all three Abrahamic quote-unquote religions, this has always been a thing, you know. This has always been a thing. And cross-culturally, and once again, historically, this has always been a thing. And there's good evidence to suggest that this kind of family unit, this kind of structure, is what brings people happiness, contentment. It makes a better living for children, for families. It's good evidence. I'll give you one piece of evidence. The longest study that has ever been produced on the well-being of women in the West is a study called Blanche Flower and Oswald, okay, which took place between the 1970s until 2000. And you'll note that this study took place after the 60s, after many of the laws had now been passed in America and in the UK and other places, which gave women the right to work and, you know, equal pay and all these kind of things, abortion, all that kind of stuff. All right, but then what we find is that we find that women are now finding it harder. According to this study, they have become more dissatisfied. So obviously we can't say correlation equals causation, but what we're saying is there's good evidence to suggest, even to the extent to which even the founding mothers of feminism, like Betty Friedan and others, they acknowledged that the feminist movement now took a shape of its own, and it was having an impact on women's health. You know, she said it herself. Betty Friedan, who wrote obviously The Feminine Mystique in 1963, in the 70s and 80s, she came and said that this movement now has become religious, the feminist movement. And what she had said about...
It's become religious?
Yes, it's become something which even she tried to stop it from being like that.
Oh, so...
The feminism had become like pseudo-religious.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
I thought you meant like what? I was like, what religion is
No, I mean, when I say religious...
like satanic?
When I say religious, I mean like it's taking on the traits of someone who believes in feminism.
Right.
Exhibits the same physiological and psychological traits as someone who follows a religion would exhibit. So she acknowledged that, and she realized she actually conducted her own study, okay, in her second book that she wrote, The Second Sage, and she said that women's health has become worse. So there's no evidence that feminist prescriptions have been good for society. And where we agree wholeheartedly and definitely is on the point that, okay, we need to go back to a more traditional way of living, and that's better for everyone. Obviously, where we disagree is that, look, I mean, some things like, I would say, the stuff that you just mentioned, like, you know, the women's voting and stuff, mother of all of you, I don't know if the argument has been made strongly enough, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I don't know if you've made the argument strongly enough.
I actually do say that some women can vote if they're not on child support, alimony, they're net taxpayers, they're in the military or have an infrastructure job. My point is, if we made those the requirements, maybe landowners, business owners, but if we made that the requirement, most women wouldn't vote anyway.
Look, do you know,
so,
historically...
We're going to go to technicality, you know.
Look, historically, okay, there's a difference between representative democracy and direct democracy, right? Democracy came out from Athens, you know, thousands of years ago, maybe 2,500, 2,400 years ago. And actually, in the first instance, at least in Athens, not in Sparta and other places, but the women were excluded from the vote. I mean, Plato has a whole criticism of voting for the commoners. And he says that the people who should vote are those who are like the elites, the intellectual elites, because why should we have dumb people voting anyway in society? That's his position. I would say that position is much more respectable than yours, though, but only because it's like what you've said can be applicable to certain groupings of men. Do you know what I mean?
What do you?
If you think about it, right? There are some people. Let's say, for example, we can do this in a myriad ways. If you've got a woman who's a PhD, right, and she's a specialist in a specific area, then you've got a man who.
I find that PhDs these days, it doesn't.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
okay, let's go to the conventional race realist favorite go-to thing, IQ.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
IQ.
Let's say a man does an IQ test and he gets 50, and a woman gets 150. Okay.
See, I'm different. I don't really believe in IQ tests, but yeah.
Me and you both. I mean, I have my own criticism of the IQ test.
Okay, but yeah, fine.
I do have
I'm fine. I understand.
But what I'm trying to say is that, like, you know, it's if it's based on prudence, then we have to now. If you say, okay, well, there's certain segments of society that shouldn't vote over a certain age, and that's based on prudence, then let's put the parameters there, and you're gonna not include a lot of men in there as well.
Yeah, well, I don't think men that don't pay taxes don't, you know, I don't think men that like are on benefits should really vote either. I just don't think it's fair that like I think the problem we keep getting into is people that are living off the system keep voting for more and more handouts. And that's kind of the issue that I have with it. And women are just the majority of people on benefits. So.
Well, women are majority of people on benefits. So now this is not an argument about who's best at choosing the right politics. It's about not including people who take from the system or they're using their vote.
Yeah, man. You know, I agree, man. Like, honestly, they should have an aptitude test before anyone's allowed to vote, you know, just to filter out people who just don't know basic shit, who more than likely are going to not have a well thought out critical vote. But yeah, he mentioned a study that I actually read about a while back, guys. The paradox of declining female happiness. This is a study conducted post 1970s. You know, when a lot of these when feminism started rearing its ugly head. After the 60s, and they found, you guys could pull this article up, man. They found some interesting shit, man. They found some real interesting, eye-opening shit. So, let's see what it says here. By most objective measures, the lives of women in the United States have improved dramatically over the past 35 years. Moreover, women believe that their lives are better in recent polls asking about changes in the status of women over the past 25 to 50 years. Around 4 in 5 adults state that the overall status of women in the U.S. has gotten better. Additionally, the 1999 Virginia Slims poll found that 72% of women believe that women have more choices in society. Today gives women more opportunities to be happy. Only 39% thought that having more choices makes life more complicated for women. Finally, women today are more likely than men to believe that their opportunities to succeed exceed those of their parents. Yet trends in self-reported subjective well-being indicate that women are less happy today than they were in the 1970s. This finding of a decline in women's well-being, both absolutely and relatively to that of men, raises questions about whether modern social constructs have made women worse off, or alternatively about the interpretability of subjective well-being data analyzed over long periods of time. And, you know, obviously the reality of it is, like, you know, in first world countries, the wealthier, the countries that got wealthier, there was little evidence that their populations actually got happier, despite the existence of a robust. Now, you know, they kind of, the ways they used to measure some of this data was a little bit strange, guys, but, you know, I guess this is a lot of this stuff is subjective, you know. But let's see here. So they measured. They have shown to be correlated with physical evidence of effects such as smiling, laughing, heart rate measures, and electrical activity in the brain have relatively high retest correlations. Yeah, man. Like the reality of it is and we can even see it throughout society today. Some of these feminists, are always, that's why these feminists are always angry and they're always distraught. They're single, man. They're just pissed off. It's because they have realized that, you know, all these improvements and advancements that society has made for women isn't necessarily what makes them happy. You know, it isn't until, you know, later on in life they start to realize, like, oh, okay, kids and a family is what brings about a happiness in a woman. So interesting shit though, man. Interesting shit. Shout out to Mohammad Hijab, man. Solid dude. Shout out to Mohammad Hijab and Pearl. I don't know why people hate on Pearl a lot, man. Pearl be there needs to be a female Andrew Tate, guys. You know, there needs to be a female version, and she plays it out pretty good. You know, she plays it out pretty good. But yeah, man. Interesting stuff. Interesting.